Hey all, Joe here, and here we are for How to Mewtwo Part 1. Now, of course, this is the Part 1, so this will be a basic guide, first impressions, and so on. And of course, Part 2 and 3 will go a lot more in depth. Make sure to vote in the comments below who you want for next time, like and comment down below who you just want. With all that said, let's get going. So as far as Mewtwo, I'd say that he's someone that's just pretty great at everything. I mean, he has a good close range, he's really good at far range, and he has decent HP to back this all up. He's one of the most solid fighters in the entire game, and I feel like he has a lot of potential in the future. For another thing in particular, I'd say that his combo game is really great. He's a ton of combos and a ton of ways to start them, and once they're started, they can do an easy 200 plus damage. As well, he has some things that nicely go into a counter or a grab, which is a really big plus because it allows you a ton of mix-up as this character. He also has immense shield pressure in both the field phase and the duel phase. Your homing attack is almost unbeatable, while in the 2D phase, all your far range hits and disjointed hitboxes really help you a ton. It's hard for the enemy to do pretty much anything, and this gives you a nice chance to get a grab out of nowhere or just attack them out of nowhere. It's very nice. Other than all that, he also has great anti-airs and his own aerial attack, which is pretty much the cream of the crop, la creme de crop. This makes it really hard for opponents to go in on him from the air, and of course all his other moves makes it very hard to go in on a Mewtwo player from the ground, and overall, it's just very hard to get in on Mewtwo in both the field phase and the duel phase. Another thing that makes it hard to get on Mewtwo is the fact that his projectiles, the ones that he has, are very fast and very easy to use and just easy to throw out over and over again to keep foes at quite a far range. It's very hard for people like Machamp to get in at all, so make sure to take this to your own advantage. After that, I'm going to say that he really doesn't have that many really glaring weaknesses like a lot of other characters has. I mean, he can go in, he can stay out, and he can do this all pretty well. He's kind of a jack of all trades that's very good at all the different trades. He's a tough nut to crack, and this is really great as a Mewtwo player as it allows you to win a lot of your matches. Finally, his Synergy Burst is amazing, but it won't really be up that often. You use a bit of the Synergy Bar whenever you use some of your attacks, and of course it has one of the slowest charge times in the entire game in the first place, so that doesn't really help as well. Still, once you get up, it's so stinking great. It makes all of your moves stronger and a lot harder to block. As well, you can mix up the burst attack with your up A in the duel mode, and there's almost nothing the enemy can do about it. If the enemy keeps shielding, you can grab them with the burst attack. If they counter, you can grab them with the burst attack. And if they attack or grab, then you can go for the up A to beat out that option. This makes them extremely deadly and very hard to counter in this mode. Now, as for the basic playstyle, I'm going to say that you have a ton of options. As I said earlier, you can either go in with moves such as your homing attack, your jumping X, or your down A, or you can stay far away with your hyper beam, your fire spin, your psi attacks, and all your disjointed moves are just, your regular Y or regular A. Or you can go kinda ham and make the enemy go aggressive, and this is one of the things I really like to do as him. At this point, you'll have a lot of options that counter approaches, and you kinda got the opponent on check. Mewtwo has many ways to be played, and I feel like you really must learn all these ways in order to mix them all up, and in order to play the fighter to the best he can be played, but once you learn all these ways, once you put them all together, you got one of the best fighters in the game. Now, for the field phase of this game, I'd also say that you're quite a stinking beast. You have many far range Y moves that shoot 3 projectiles, and these beat up most of the enemy's choices. As well, you can mix these up into another projectile by just simply pressing Y again, and then you can finally go for a melee attack combo. This lets you get in the field phase as well as staying at far range. Also, you have many moves like your jumping Y, your forward A, and your regular A to space from really far away, and of course there's your homing attack and your jumping A and your jumping X, which are all very hard to beat from the opponent's stand of view. Really, in this phase, you do quite well and you beat out most other enemies. Now, as for a bit of bad for the field phase, I'd say that you can't spam quite as much as some of the other characters in this game. Now, this means that in some cases, you will have to go in, which isn't a bad thing, but it is a little bit annoying as your going in isn't the best in the entire game. It forces you to play in a certain playstyle, that is going in, and that isn't always what you want to do as Mewtwo. You want to be having these mix-ups, and when they get rid of those mix-ups, it can be kind of hard to play him. Sometimes you can outplay the opponent from super far away, but for the most part, you're going to really have to go in, and that's going to be necessary for you. Now, as far as the duel phase in particular, I feel you aren't quite as strong, but you're still okay. You lose a lot of your ranged hits, and you gain a little bit of these middle range spacing hits, aka a lot of your Y and X attacks. Luckily for Mewtwo though, this makes him do even better versus certain foes, the foes that try to beat you at mid-range, and it's just hard for them to safely go in versus Mewtwo here unless they have already had a lot of pressure on you. Of course, I need to mention Psystrike as well, his up A, as it's one of the better moves around in this entire game. It beats out most attacks and a lot of the grabs, and only a counter can really counter it, and sometimes that doesn't even cut it. Certain counter moves don't even counter your up A Psystrike. The move does have quite a bit of ending lag, so try to not miss this thing, but if you happen to hit one of these against the enemies, it'll hurt a ton, and that's one of my favorite parts about the duel phase. Now, as I said, I feel like you do a little bit worse versus far range enemies, and I'll say it once again, they can outcamp you, and you don't really have the best approaching options in the entire game, as far as I can tell. You have some pretty nice ones, but not really the best ones. As well, some rushdown style people can just beat you as they can get past a lot of your main range spacing, and you're kind of doomed at that point. Up A will sometimes save you here, but not always. Now, as far as some tips and tricks as Mewtwo, I'd say first off, try out the special cheer when playing as Mewtwo. I know a lot of people have been playing this special cheer with everyone, but Mewtwo is in particular one of my favorites. Now, with this cheer, it makes so that you can get a whole 40% of your synergy gauge if you win, and of course if you lose, your supports get fully charged, so that's nice as well. This lets you get a huge chunk of your synergy bar if you win your first round, and this can easily translate to a second round win with your Mega, and that'll just finish off the set, which is very nice. The next thing I'd say is a simple one, but one that I see way too much online. Don't spam your stinking Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam is a very slow charging move that does good damage, but is extremely easy to dodge from the enemy's point of view, or just easy to shield. In the field phase, it'll almost never hit against a good foe, while in the duel phase, it's very easy to punish as you are much closer to your enemies than in the field phase. I'd say for the most part, just go for your other range attacks. This one really isn't that safe, and the damage isn't often worth it. Next, versus far range spacers, try out the Togekiss support set. I know most often you won't see a Mewtwo with one of these sets, but it can really help you a ton here. It makes so that you can enter the mid-range much easier, and from there you can go to town on the enemy. As well, you can more easily dodge face-on projectile assaults and just get in easier. Maybe it's just me, but I really like this one. Finally, I feel like Mewtwo will probably be one of the best and most consistent fighters in Pokken Tournament, probably beating a lot of tournaments very consistently and also being at the top of the ranks quite often. He's great at almost all points of the game and does really well in lag and without lag. But of course he does have the negative that his Mega takes forever to charge, so maybe that will be the deciding factor for him that makes him not go over the edge. Anyways, even not in the Mega, he does great, and most definitely he has a high placing for the future in my opinion. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, make sure to press that like button, and of course there will be a part 2 and a 3 coming in soon, which will be a lot more in-depth, so if you want some more in-depth stuff, then there you go. Also, this video was a little bit short just because, you know, I was running a little bit low on time, and that's why I did make an April Fool's video as well, so there's just going to be this for April Fool's Day, which isn't even funny, but you know, whatever. I hope you all still enjoyed though. Hope that you got your fill of non-April Fool video. With all that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll be seeing you all next time.